welcome back. So it's been a while since I've last done a video, and since I last done a video, there's definitely some big things that happened to me in these last couple of days. As you probably are well aware, I was tested positive for COVID. After yesterday, I did an at-home antigen test, and it was pretty much confirmed that I was tested positive. Though I will be doing another PCR test tomorrow to make sure that, of course, is the case, because sometimes, from what I heard with at-home antigen tests, sometimes it's not always the most accurate, and that PCR test tends to be the more accurate to determine whether or not you have COVID or not. But most likely I might have tested positive when I do the PCR test too, because I had those usual COVID-19 symptoms like fever and fatigueness, and some of the symptoms that I had before besides those are kind of like just some headaches, a little bit of a sore throat, and also some aching pain in my body. I mean, it was just not a fun thing to deal with. But one thing that I'm actually glad that I did not have these symptoms while I was having COVID-19 was trouble breathing. Like, that was one thing that I was very concerned when I fear that I might have been tested positive for COVID-19, because when you have trouble breathing with getting the virus, yeah, it can get really dicey. But thankfully that was not the case. And also, if you of course wonder, I have recovered from those symptoms. In fact, yesterday I kind of recovered from those symptoms. I don't have a fever anymore, though I am gonna have to self-isolate myself for at least 5 days, and that 5-day period could also start all over again, because even though I know I said I tested positive for the at-home antigen test, the clock might actually not start until tomorrow when I do the PCR test. Or actually, it won't start until I get the result, because when I get the result, it's positive. Then I think that's when the 5-day period is going to start. But nevertheless, the good thing about that is that, more time for me to stay at home, and more time for me to, of course, do some video. And I definitely have some catch up to do, because, with these season previews that I have, which I think I still have like about 20 teams to do with the season preview, and just only like about 13 days before I'm gonna start doing some of those predictions, and also do the previews and all those kind of videos that is related for the upcoming season. Yeah, I gotta get these season preview done as quick as possible. Now, another thing that have just happened yesterday was that my Twitter account got hacked, and I don't know why that, of course, is the case. Apparently, there's this guy called Benjamin. He basically just kind of hacked my Twitter account. Now, fortunately, I did report it to Twitter support, and I also kind of trying to brute force the problem by basically deleting all his tweet, and also changing my password, and also now basically rely on a 2-step authorization on my Twitter account to make sure the guy that basically hacked into my Twitter account will not get access back to my Twitter account again. But nevertheless, if you guys, of course, were following me on Twitter, which if you haven't, why not go ahead and check that out. I have a link in the description below. But if you follow on Twitter and you saw that unusual thing, yeah, that was not me. That was just an example of my Twitter account getting hacked, and thankfully, there was no real damage. He didn't really post any negative things and stuff. It seems like maybe it was just one of those bots that basically tweet random things on my Twitter account and stuff like that. Because I know sometimes when there are people Twitter account get hacked, they sometimes cause more problem, especially with the way that some of those hacked Twitter accounts might expose some personal information. Thank God that is not the case in terms of my Twitter account being hacked. But at least for now, I think the one that I have is safe. Though again, I hope I hear back from Twitter support to make sure that, of course, is the case. But with that being said, let us now actually get into the video, and I'll probably even put a timestamp in terms of just kind of skipping away from all my quick updates that I have in the last couple of days by talking about the Chicago Fire in the season preview. And I've also just recently ordered a couple of teams jersey, and unfortunately the Fire is one of those teams that I don't have a jersey with. Though when they do release their new jersey with the new logo that they have, I'm definitely thinking about buying it, because I have a good feeling it's going to be a really nice jersey. I mean, to be fair, I kind of feel like I should have bought last year's jersey. I mean, last year's, I know their jersey wasn't really that good, but it was really the last time that they have that hideous logo before they change it into the new one this season. So it's kind of maybe be a little bit of a commemorative kind of jersey, just to kind of show people that, you know, this is what the Chicago Fire once used. And even though it's ugly, we've seen before where even the most ugliest jersey that teams wear, 20 years down the line, people will always think about buying it, because it just brings that nostalgia kind of moment. Though I probably might still think about buying it. I mean, I can always go to eBay to of course get the old Chicago Fire jersey, but I'm definitely looking forward to the new one that they are releasing. And also with some of the jerseys that I've recently bought, I think the two jersey that I recently bought was the, well, actually free jersey, because I had to buy a new Portland Timbers jersey after I actually didn't know where I left it at my house. And then the two other jersey was a Sporting KC and RSL jersey, and those two jersey actually complete my collection in terms of having at least a jersey or apparel for the Western Conference team. And this year I'm also planning to do the same thing with the Eastern Conference, have jerseys for every single team, so now I don't have to just not wear a jersey when I do talk about a team in a preview review, or in this case, a season preview. So, the Chicago Fire, you know, last season they finished with 9-7-18 and finished with 34 points. They scored 36 goals while allowing 54 goals for a -18 goal differential, and they finished 12th in the Eastern Conference, which was enough for this team to once again blow it up. This is pretty much blow up 2.0, and pretty much decided to get rid of their head coach and Raphael Wiki and all the hard works that they kind of did when they had that kind of rebrand a couple of years ago, and then of course moving back to Soldier Field and trying to begin a new era that didn't really last very long. But the last 5 seasons for this team, you know, as I mentioned, they finished 12th in 2021, finished 11th in 2020. That was the first year of what was supposed to be a new era for this Fire team, and it turns out that was not the case. 2019, in their last year playing at Bridgeville and at SeaKey Stadium, they finished in 8th place. In 2018, they finished in 10th place, and then in 2017, they actually made it to the playoffs as a 3rd seed, but we know that was the year that they got eliminated in the first round by the New York Red Bulls. But that was really the best year that the Fire has had in the past 15 years. Like, this team, ever since the turn of the 2010s, it has just been a doormat to the league, and a team that has just suffered so much failure year after year, and have had problems in terms of making the playoffs. Now this year, you know, obviously, as I mentioned, with them kind of blowing up in the offseason, even though they're kind of going through another rebuild right now, they've already signed some big names that they figure that it's going to not only help the rebuild, but maybe bypass that rebuild and kind of, I would say, maybe they're kind of retooling in some way rather than just rebuilding for this upcoming season. Because the biggest piece that they of course got this offseason, well, it was the biggest piece until, you know, we know what's going to happen in a couple of days when they announce another big piece that is going to do, and I'll talk just about that in a couple of seconds. But you got Kasper Schmeichel, who they got from the Philadelphia Union for, I think, around 1.5 million general allocation money. Then they got Raphael Gil from FC Cologne, Spencer Ritchie off of free agency for the Seattle Sounders, and Hun Duran from Envigado in Venezuela. Then in the Super Draft, they got Janis Littman, Carlo Retecho, Charlie Ostrom, and Kendall Brooks from the Super Draft. But, you know, again, one name that is missing in that in list, but, you know, I know it's going to be a matter of time before they will announce that he's going to be a new Chicago Fire player, is Xherdan Shaqiri. It's been pretty much confirmed that he is going to be going to the Fire. They're actually just undergoing his medical right now, and in these upcoming days, and maybe even today, they're going to announce that Xherdan Shaqiri has officially become a Chicago Fire player, which that would be such a way to do it. Consider I just done a season preview, and then they of course announced that he is officially a Fire player. Though I'll kind of maybe talk a little bit more about that when I do get into the news of the week episode on Wednesday. But yeah, it's pretty much clear that Shaqiri is going to come to this team, and the only reason why I didn't put that in is because, you know, he technically isn't right now. He's still doing his medical But once the club officially announced, then yeah. I mean, to be fair, I probably should have just put him in either way, because it's pretty clear that he's going to join this team in a matter of days, or even in today. Now, in terms of player that is out, I mentioned, they kind of did a little bit of a clean house, especially on the attack. They got rid of Alvaro Madron, who's going to be going to Al Tavien FC in the Middle East. Then you got Francisco Calvo, that unfortunately is going to go to the San Jose Earthquakes. I mean, the Fire probably are happy the fact that they sold off Calvo to the Quakes, and almost like, yeah, good luck with him, because you're going to definitely have fun with him making mistakes in the back line. Then they also move on from Lukas Stojanovic, which this was one of the more surprising ones, because I didn't think Stojanovic had a bad season with the Fire. In fact, I thought he actually was one of the better player on the attack. I mean, he even led the team in goal scoring. I guess maybe the reason why they eventually let him go was he kind of had some disagreement between Wiki near the end, where it seems like he's no longer interested to be with this team, but he's also going to be going to the Middle East and going to Al Hazam. Then you got Elliot Collier going to San Antonio FC in the USL Championship. Bobby Shuttleworth going to Atlanta United. Ignacio Aliseda going to FC Lugano. Robert Beric, who's still shockingly a free agent in the market. Like, I am shocked the fact that no one has thought about taking Robert Beric. I mean, I know that contract is definitely not a good one to take, but Beric is kind of a guy that, when he is in form, he is definitely considered the best striker in the league. And I guess maybe that might be the reason why maybe not many teams have decided to take on him. Like, I thought when Sporting KC was going to do so, they would, I would, assuming that they of course would sign him outright, consider, that's another depth piece that they have in that number 9 position. And now they definitely regret that they didn't sign him, especially when they found out that Alan Polito was going to be out for the rest of the season. But yeah, I'm shocked that Beric is still in the free agency market, and I'm kind of surprised that, there's teams around the league that desperately needs a number 9, and Beric is a guy that, while at times he can be inconsistent and at times he can go through a dry spell, he's still a guy that can score 10 goals for you every single season. And again, I feel like some teams, they need to, of course, maybe give it a try. So we'll see whether or not if he's going to be picked up. Like, I'm assuming he is going to eventually be picked up. He's too good of a player that I think, and probably right now the best player still left in the free agency to not being picked up by an MLS team. Then you got Johan Kappenhoff, who is a free agent. Kenneth Kromholm, of course, retire, and then Nicholas Saline, also a free agency for the Chicago Fire. Now, the optimism for this Fire team, I'm not sure why I said optimistic. I mean, I guess maybe fans are going to be optimistic in some way, and that's just another way to say it. Though most of the time I basically write optimism in my season preview. But the optimism is the new logo, new head coach, new players, and new identity. I mean, again, this is like a Chicago Fire 3.0 era. Again, with the way that, the 2.0 era didn't really quite work out when they hired Raphael Wiki, and basically they gave the players that he wants to work with this team, and they turns out to underachieve during the 2 years that they had. So, with a new era, maybe things are going to be different. I mean, I think Fire fans, they're probably the most optimistic about their logo itself, considering the fact that they finally got rid of that hideous logo that they had for 2 years. And in some way their head coach too, because Izzer Henriksen, I always thought that he would always get a chance to get a job in MLS, and he definitely is kind of an upcoming head coach in MLS, though we'll see whether or not if that's going to be true now that he finally gets a chance to be a head coach of an MLS team. And then of course the new players, I talked about getting big name player like Shabilko and also Shaqiri. And then the new identity, maybe whatever Izzer Henriksen is going to do with this team and his tactics and philosophy is going to be completely different than what we're going to see what Raphael Wiki did to this Fire team just last season. And then of course the other optimistic thing I mentioned, getting Xherdan Shaqiri, a guy that has always been a very underrated player, and a guy that I think this is probably one of the bigger signing that the Fire has made, right up there with Bastian Schweinsteiger that they signed a couple of years ago. And the good thing about Shaqiri, unlike Schweinsteiger, is that Shaqiri is still relatively young. I mean, I won't say he's he's very young. I mean, he's actually going to be 31 years old, heading into this season. But he's still young enough where he's not like counting down the days before he's going to retire, and he's still got, I think, about 3 or 4 years left. Well, actually, not even 3 or 4 years, but maybe at least 5 or 6 years, because he's not really used as much as you think he would be. Like a lot during his time with Liverpool, and even during his early days with Bayern, he was mostly kind of a substitute player. So I think he definitely still have a lot of legs left in the tank, and yeah, I think he is definitely going to be a guy that the Fire is going to build on, to trying to get themselves back to be a competitive team. Now, the concern for the Fire team heading into this season, obviously, the lack of team chemistry. Again, with the way that they are starting being a new team, it just kind of feel like this is like what happened in 2019 all over again, where you bring in a lot of new players into a team, and there's really not a lot of chemistry, and also bring in a new head coach trying to implement the system. It's going to take time for it to get going, and the thing about time with that is that, it's going to be interesting how long that's going to take. I mean, if it's going to take relatively quick, then I think this Fire team does have a shot to of course, compete for playoffs. But if it does take maybe like half a season to develop that chemistry, yeah, I don't think they might have enough in terms of trying to go on a good second half run to get to the playoffs, because we know that the playoffs this season, this is probably the toughest season to make it to the playoffs, with it being only half of the team make it to the playoffs. Though I will say that this was one of the toughest seasons, because last year that was kind of the same case where only half of the team in the East make it to the playoffs. So you really need to not get off to a poor start, and it's not like past years where you get to a poor start, it's okay, you can maybe still sneak into like the last two spot. No, you need to be decent from the beginning, and especially there's also a lot of good teams in the East right now. They have a lot to fight in terms of trying to get into the playoff position, and getting off to a slow start is definitely not an ideal way. With Shibilko getting up service from this team. So one thing that I think, the other thing I'm also concerned about this team is there's really no number 10 in this team, or no playmaker in this team. I mean, Alvaro Madron was a guy that I was thinking that he was going to be the playmaker, and now he's gone and no longer with this team. Who's going to be the guy that's going to be the playmaker of this team? And one thing about Shibilko is that he needs service to be successful. He can't just create his own chances. So we'll see whether, if that is going to be the case, because if that's not going to be the case, I don't think Shibilko is going to do well with this Fire team. I mean, the good thing why he was so good with the Union was he got a lot of service from that Union attack, and he usually most of the time buried those chances. Although there's times when he is not scoring, that sometimes he could miss those chances. But now it's going to be interesting to see. Now he's coming to a team that maybe not going to have as good of an attacking talent as he would have with the Union. And, you still need to rely on those service to basically score those goals. And then the last thing to be concerned with this Fire team, the inconsistency and the boneheaded plays. I mean, that's kind of something that I'm going to say every single year until this team changes in a season preview. I mean, it's just been so frustrating if you're a Fire fan, knowing the fact that this team, there's times where they could look like the best team in MLS, and then there's times where they look like the worst team in MLS, and you just don't know what kind of team you're going to get in and day out. And this is also why this season, again, it's going to be really tough to predict how the Fire is going to finish this season, because they do have the potential to be a playoff team, but they don't live up to that potential and go back to the old Fire way like they have been for the past couple of years, with that inconsistency of not able to get on a winning streak, or the fact that there's times where they make some of the most boneheaded play during in the middle of the game, you're just thinking, how in the world did they do that to give up a goal? I mean, that's just something that a lot of Fire fans will always be concerned with this team, and rightfully so. That's kind of the one of the main way why a lot of Fire fans are very pessimistic about this team. Like I know, I haven't met any Chicago Fire fan, but I think a lot of Fire fans have always been very pessimistic, especially with the way that when you have a team that hasn't won a lot games and have always missed out on the playoffs year in year out, it's kind of hard to be optimistic with a team, even with a new regime and a new changes in the coaching and also new players coming into this team. Now, in terms of MVP for this team, I'm going to say it's going to be Shaqiri. I mean, this is pretty obvious that Xherdan Shaqiri is going to be the MVP. He's going to be the guy that is going to really do well. Now, he is more of a winger, but I won't be surprised. Maybe he's going to be that guy that is going to be the number 10 or kind of be that playmaker. So, you know, if that's going to be the case, then there's no doubt that he's going to be the MVP of this team. Now, comeback player, I was going to say Shaqiri too, because Shaqiri hasn't really done well in this last season when he was with Lyon, and that's why there's always that talk of him coming to MLS. But, you know, for the comeback player, I'm not going to go with the same player again, but instead I'm going to go with a name that I've always believed that one day he will actually do well. And this is the same I said about Madron and Aliseda. And by the way, Aliseda is another player that's no longer here. But one guy that is still here is Gaston Jimenez. And I still believe that he can live up to his potential, especially the way that I think the Fire kind of are desperate to hope that he does live up to his potential, because he's one of their DP player. Like the fact that, you know, these last two seasons he hasn't really lived up to that DP price tag. It's definitely just another example of the Fire not being very smart in terms of some of their signing. But again, I'm gonna say what I said earlier, the fact that I believe when they did sign those DP player like Madron and Aliseda, they of course would work out. And, you know, I know those two players is no longer there, and you probably wonder, well, why is Jimenez still being there? Well, something tells me maybe the Fire still believe that he can do well, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I think that's what I am thinking, the fact that he's gonna really have a good season and maybe for once live up to the DP price tag and the potential that he looked like he could have when they signed him a couple of years ago. Now, in terms of expectation for this team, well, again, it is very hard to judge expectation for this team. Like, on one hand, I want to say that this team wants to compete for playoff position, but it's kind of also like they're going through a rebuild right now, and it's kind of like 2019 all over again, where there's really not much expectation other than the fact that they want to get this rebuild off to a good start and at least shown some signs that they can maybe do well in the future. So yeah, you know, expectation, I think this season is not going to be as high as we saw last year, but at the same time, you know, I think Fire fans will also say that they want this team to win, and especially with the talent that they had, especially on the attack. Like, when you have guys like Shabilko, one of the most lethal goal scorers in the league, and then Xherdan Shaqiri, probably one of the biggest signings this offseason, you need to of course win games, and you need to of course make sure you can actually finally get to the playoffs for the first time in 2017, and also finally and one of the longest active playoff drought by an MLS team right now. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if they can of course meet that expectation. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys see a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and if you're a Chicago Fire fan, what do you think? You're optimistic about this season, you're concerned, and most importantly, your expectation. What do you think this team is going to look like for this upcoming season? But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys see a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.